So I doing a little research on Instagram, and I came across Instagram member their name is Think Don't Cut. Think Don't Cut. Think Don't Cut, and they had some just fantastic um, comments by men who have been through this, who understand circumcision, and they get it, and they are expressing their dissatisfaction with it. So I'm just going to read to you a few of these men's feelings on this and talk a little bit about my own. I think it's really important that we start to pay attention to the true facts of how men feel about this being done to them. So thank you. Think Don't Cut. This was thank you for organizing this. These are just fantastic statements by these men, and I know I have a bunch of them somewhere, but anyways, let's get into this. So this is Dominic Obertone, and he says, I was circumcised as an infant in the hospital I was born in. The revelation of the truth emotionally destroyed me. I feel like the world is crazy and sadistic to let such a practice exist in a modern and enlightened era. I realized what exactly I was missing, and I was angry that people were so quick to brush it off as a useless thing. I've even had suicidal thoughts over how gaslighted I feel. I forgive them for not knowing, but I will not forgive them for their continued mistakes on the future generation. I feel broken. Every day I will wake up to the same reality of mutilation disguised as tradition. There is so much I have said, and some of it I draw tears remembering. This act has stripped me of hope in the ideals of the world, and the only reason I continue living is because I'm still alive to continue. Why die? Why live? It's funny how human I feel reacting to mutilation as I do, why others dare say I'm not acting normal. I have spoken to my parents on many occasions and have made it clear to them that I'm never letting this issue slide. An irreversible atrocity is how I see it, and they know that. I do not think we should punish those who support circumcision, but at the very least prevent them from inflicting it on others. The help I have gotten has been mostly based on fixing my thinking. So I would not be so sad. It's completely backwards and only gets me into arguments. Nobody cares about what I have to say. I don't want to fight. I want a discussion. I don't want angry, spiteful, or blowing off opinions. I want questions and answers. There's no hatred. There's only the next generation and the censorship that challenges their well-being. The only support I've gotten is the ability to speak to my mind. If I want to get anything across, it's that inflicting genital mutilation is not tolerable, no matter what race, religion, tradition, or otherwise. Body integrity should be amended to the Constitution of how essential it is a human right. Hippie Chillin' says, 100% I feel you, bro. It's a comment. Okay, that was Dominic. Let's hear what Steven has to say about it. Steven speaks about his circumcision. My exposed sensitive tissue rubbing against my underwear is a daily problem, and I need constant readjusting myself to make walking comfortable. If the government had services providing for victims of FGM, they would have to acknowledge the possible mental negative done by it. I feel extremely violated. Every time I look at my penis, I feel uncomfortable and angry. I'm embarrassed about being cut, and I hate that it happened to me. I don't think I will ever be able to forgive my parents. These are not trivial words. These are not like insignificant words. This is as grave and as important as you could make them. These are people talking about suicide and disgust with humans around them. It's just enraging. This is Ethan Schoenhofen. Sorry if I screwed that up. It's very insensitive, quite dried out and unappealing for me to look at. It has a horrible scar line as well. I talked to my dad, who admitted it was mutilation, but didn't enjoy talking to me about it. Who wants to talk about this, right? Gatewood Arnold. Circumcision led me to hate my parents because they robbed me of my natural body and all that comes with it for life. It has also negatively interfered with every sexual interaction I could have had or I have ever had or could have. Sex often feels sensationless. No matter how much I truly hate it, I still have to wake up and deal with what was stolen from me by inconsiderate and ignorant actions of my parents. Non-therapeutic infant circumcision is evil. I feel so hurt by it and have no way out of this hell. It's for life. It's a life sentence. Okay, Jacob Creatich says, I'm loving these kind of posts. Means he's loving the truth. Prude and Rude says, people need to know this barbaric practice is not harmless. Thank you for raising awareness around this issue. Foot Buddha Jack Girl LA says, that's exactly how I feel. Hippie Chillin says, same. Craig, like all circumcised men, I am reminded of what happened to me on a daily basis. Whenever I stand in front of a toilet, shower, get dressed and undressed. For a long time, my circumcision was something that was done to me, that created a large degree of resentment, grief, and a feeling of utter powerlessness. I think that male circumcision is often derided as being a trivial matter and only a little operation. We don't allow FGM, so why is MGM permitted? FK in Orange says, I couldn't agree with this statement more. The idea of getting over it. It's a body scar that is present for the rest of your life. Get over it. It's just sick and cruel. Miguel Luis Manis. Society's attitude is appalling. I hear loads in the media about FGM, and rightfully so. But because circumcision is a legal procedure and normal, it's dismissed. Nobody has a right, under any circumstances, to cut healthy, functional body parts off any minor. I started to do so much research on the functions of foreskins and realized how keratinized and desensitized my glands was, and broken to view my scar as something broken that I was ashamed of it. I feel less of a man. I don't feel normal. I don't feel whole. I do feel a sense of betrayal by my parents, the doctor, and the medical system. Celtic Gaskevich says betrayal is right perspective. It's criminal mutilation, amputation. Hippie Chillin says 100% me too. And Prude and Rude said so sad. Adam. These are very, very powerful statements. And I think these need to be out there to the public. People need to hear what men feel about this, and that there's the idea that men don't complain is just ludicrous. Okay, so this is Adam. Okay, before I knew what circumcision was, I grew up thinking I was deformed. As a child, I suffered from a severe speech impediment. I feel confident this was due to brain damage neonatal genital cutting causes by flooding the developmenting brain with cortisol. As a young child, I would have panic attacks or dissociative episodes. I cannot prove the source of this, but the only trauma in my early life was my genital cutting. When I would be with a girl and things started to get intimate, I would pull back. The girl would feel hurt and the relationship would end. So it's very hard to disregard very, very powerful statements like that. And, it's just, I'm just flabbergasted when I hear people that just disregard the gravity of this or trivialize how damaging this is. Like, this literally has affected every experience you have in your entire life. Even if you're intact and you're whole and you're living in a genitally mutilated culture. And the genitally mutilated culture has a psychosis, this sociological psychosis, this mass psychosis, and it's not normal. That psychosis is not normal. It's not normal to claim that I'm fine and circumcised. You're genitally mutilated. You're missing the majority of the sexual nerves of your body, and you're psychologically damaged, and you have no human rights, and nobody cares about you. And to say that that's an okay situation or a normal situation is just ludicrous. And I keep telling people, the more you claim to be fine, the worse the damage was for you. The more in denial you are, the more if you can't accept this as reality, then I'm sorry, but the idea that I'm circumcised is fine is ludicrous. It makes no sense. You're not circumcised and fine. It'd be like saying I'm, missing a limb and fine. You're just not fine. Personally, I think this has had a dramatic effect on my life. A dramatic effect. My father has an anger issue, and he never like hauled off and beat me like a man. Like I know some people went through way, way, way worse stuff. My father was not a very. I mean, he's a great person. He's a phenomenal person. And he would do little things like yell and freak out. And he had this ring because he was a West Point graduate. And he would take this ring and just hit you on the top of the head with it, and that hurt like crazy. But I mean, and he would yell. He'd push me into corners, and he would get in my face, and do that kind of stuff, and yell, and yell, and looking back on him and his trauma, I don't think there was any major trauma in his life that would have caused that. I don't think his parents were particularly abusive any more than he was towards me. My dad wasn't abusive. Like, I mean, I guess some would consider some of the things abusive. I just want you to understand, like I had a normal father. My father was a normal and actually a wonderful father. But but he had anger, right? And he had this anger issue. And I thought that, hey, well, my anger issue, I thought I got it from that. Like I got it from my dad. I got it from my genes, maybe. This is just a natural part of who I am. This propensity to just flow into a rage, an uncontrollable rage where you can't, I mean, I've developed the ability to maintain and control this, but that anger is still there. And I'm like, what caused this? What was the impetus of this? And I look at my dad's life, and my grandfather was, I mean, he didn't do anything to cause my dad to have this anger. Um, my dad didn't do anything for me to have this type of anger. And our society, if you look at our society itself, like the men are just aggressive, angry, insecure. I mean, just all these psychological imbalances and just defects in their personality. Just even the sense of confidence or security, self-security in oneself. All these things have been damaged at the most fundamental time in your life. And people that say that they, it doesn't affect them or they're fine, or it's just ludicrous. You don't understand this issue when you say that. And I think people need to start paying attention to the men that realize this and understand it and get it, and they need to start listening to our voices. How else has this affected me? I mean, we've all watched American Pie. Every man, when you go into puberty, you're gonna have your hormones are extreme. You've just gone through puberty. Your desires and things like that are through the roof. We've all been through puberty, and so obviously, it's going to be much easier to create an orgasm. So you remember watching American Pie where he came so quick and stuff like that. That is a result of the removal of the foreskin, and what it causes is the glands itself has what's called nociceptors in it, and the nociceptors have a high frequency, which means they go high and they drop down low quickly. Okay, so a nociceptor is a pain receptor. So if you look at the foreskin has the Meissner corpuscles and the Pacinian corpuscles and the free nerve endings and those types of nerves, but not an abundance of the nociceptors or the pain receptors. So the pain receptors are also actually contribute somewhat to the sexual sensation. And this is the reason why when you have an intact man, typically that has suffered from phimosis, right? If you have an intact grown man who's suffering from phimosis, when you remove the foreskin, the glands then becomes exposed, right? Well, if you had your glands covered because of phimosis, and then you remove the foreskin, Then all of a sudden you have this vast increase in sensation, of course, right? So a cut man who's, who's suffering from phimosis, who runs into a quack doctor, by the way, phimosis is always easily fixed with other less invasive means than amputation. Amputating a foreskin for phimosis is like gouging out an eye for a speck. It's just ludicrous and way overblown reaction. You can easily, if a man can regrow his foreskin, you can fix phimosis, right? Phimosis is just a little bit of tissue growing, a very small amount of tissue growing. If a man can restore a whole amputated foreskin, believe me, a person with phimosis can easily restore their phimosis. Anyways, if you remove the foreskin, obviously the nociceptors are then exposed, and then a person who's been suffering from phimosis can then make the claim that he's improved his sensation, right? And also, those nociceptors, because they have a high threshold and a high sensitivity, this is the reason why, for instance, men will claim, oh, I just lightly brushed my glands with a towel and I got pain. And this is what I've been dealing with my entire life. I can very lightly brush my glands and I have sharp shooting pain that goes right into my abdomen. And that, so even the fact that this is a tissue that has been keratinized over 43 years of exposure, and I've had dramatic decrease in the quality of sensation that I feel, I still have that pain sensation that I feel. So the nociceptors are still there, and they're still going to have that sensation. The nociceptors do contribute to sexual sensation. They do contribute to, and obviously if you go too far into that, then you have a reversal of that feeling. But they do contribute to somewhat of the good sensation. That's why, there's a little bit of, you've heard the pleasure and pain type of thing. But they're not designed for sexual pleasure. The Meissner corpuscles are. So now men that are using the nociceptors for sexual pleasure, initially when you're, 16, 17, your hormones are raging, and you have well, number one, you haven't had a lot of sex because, you're young and you don't have that experience. So you're going to come quickly, normally. Any intact man, any normal man, every 18 to 20 year, man in puberty at that age, they're going to have, it's going to have the propensity to have quick orgasms. Men get over that as they develop experience and as they get older, right? That just, the sensation drops down a little bit, and they get over it. And anyways, so what happened to me is I had to deal with that just like every other man. You have to come up with ways to not have your orgasm happen too quickly or whatever. That's because the nociceptors, as you withdraw and push in, the nociceptors are never covered. They're never fully covered. So now what you're relying on is actual moving friction of skin sliding over other skin rather than the unrolling and the rolling mechanism of the foreskin. So what that does is it prevents that extreme amount of abundance of high threshold, I guess you would say low threshold, high frequency nerve sensation of the nociceptors, which can cause that initial premature ejaculation. Okay, so that's how that a premature ejaculation happens, because, well, that foreskin's not there to prevent the nociceptors from firing off during intercourse, right? So that's the main reason why mutilated men have a higher propensity for premature ejaculation. And to add insult to injury, as we get older, I'm 43 years old, and your exposed glands, how many towels have brushed up against my glands over my entire life, sending that shooting pain into my body. Over time, the skin gets tougher. I have noticed I don't feel that shooting pain as much as I do, but I still can get that shooting pain. But I know that my sensation is dramatically dropped. Dramatically. I barely feel anything. I hear intact men saying it's like, that their gland, their ridge band and their frenulum is like a finger, like a sensation. You can feel everything, like very fine touch, right? Like my fingers. I don't feel that at all in my penis. There's no fine touch sensitivity. It's just like this. Okay. So anybody can test this themselves. You can feel this is kind of, not very sensitive skin. Okay, the Meissner corpuscles are found in the fingers. This is why you can feel every little spot. You know exactly where it is when you touch your fingers. But you touch the back of your hand, it's not the same. Okay, it's not the same. If you close your eyes, touch the back of your hand, you can barely feel where it is. You can feel it's there, but you don't know exactly where. But when you touch your palm, you know exactly where it's at. Same thing for your eyelashes. If you just touch one of your eyelashes, okay, those Meissner corpuscles will fire. The Meissner corpuscles are found in the openings of the body, the eyes, the mouth. They're also found in the genitals, the fingers, the hands, the bottom of the feet. Those are the most sensitive types. So I can imagine what it would be like to have those Meissner corpuscles on my genitals when during intercourse, because I mean, I barely feel it now, right? So I know that if I had the types of feelings in my fingertips, I mean, it would just be mind-boggling different. I mean, I could just imagine, right? I could imagine in my head what it would be like, and it would be completely different than what I'm experiencing. So that's just the sensation. Then to talk about the psychological damage, you know, like, I've had an anger issue all my life. As long as I can remember, I've had an anger issue. And, you know, like I said, I thought it was because of my dad. I thought it was because of his temper. I thought it was because of my genetics. I thought it was just naturally this way. And then I just started studying this. I started realizing that, you know what, that this is not by accident that I have this, or genetics or anything like that. This is a trauma-infused hyper reaction to stress. So I have a hyper stress response, and that is the fight or flight. It's basic PTSD. So it's post-traumatic stress disorder. It's your body, and in studying this, when you study this and you understand it on a deeper level, when you understand the psychological effects and just how this, you know, for instance, a lot of people think, oh, you know, it's done so early, the baby won't remember it, and that's just the worst. The earlier it's done, the worse it is on the psychology of the child. The earlier it's done, the more influential it happens to be on the way his body develops. Okay, so our body is designed to react to our environment. We have genes, and our genes basically are the blueprint, right? Well, what determines what part of that blueprint is activated is the environment. So what's called epigenetics. The epigenetics is the epi means above, above genetics. So the way the genes are activated are caused by reactions to the environment, the epigenetics. So when a child is born, their brain is growing at a fascinating, you know, a fantastic rate. I think there's like cells are like 10,000 brain cells per second are growing. Some ridiculous number, but it's fantastic, the level of development of the brain. This is the most important developmental period in a child's life. So if you take that child and then you literally torture them and mutilate them and infuse their mind with extreme trauma, and don't doubt this is extreme, right? Babies don't sleep through having the most sensitive part of their genitals ripped apart, clamped, scraped, ripped, and crushed and cut apart. They don't sleep through that. If a baby's sleeping, that's a sign of worse trauma, or basically what's happening is a baby's going into shock. Okay. So when a baby goes into shock, they stop crying, and that's a sign of worse trauma. That's not a sign of less trauma. Okay. So what happens is when we infuse this baby with trauma, this changes the way the genetics of this child is expressed for life. The way this child's genetics are expressed have been altered. Okay, so the way the brain is developed, the way the fight or flight nervous system is developed, all these things are altered. And what the body's doing is preparing for trauma in the future. So it expects trauma. If a child is born into trauma, their body will adapt to trauma. And sometimes trauma adaptation is maladaptive. It doesn't work. It doesn't actually create a better adaptation. But I guess I suppose if you were born into an extreme amount of violence and trauma, it might actually be beneficial. But anyways, it's been said that the worst scar of circumcision is on the mind of the victim, and I agree with that 100%. Like, I mean, it's enraging and disgusting and disheartening to find out that your sex life is, you know, like on a 1 to 10 scale, you're at a 3, and that's the highest you'll ever reach. is a 3 on a 1 to 10 scale. That's disheartening. It's enraging. It's, like you're taking one of the best parts of a person's life. Like this is what songs are written about. This is what poems are written about. This is what stories are written about. This is what people are motivated by for life. This is one of the most important things in our life. The love that we connect with somebody, it could be the strongest relationship we have in our life. This intimacy that you have with this person that you care about and you love is diminished and muted and damaged. And that's dramatic. So I don't know. This plays out in our society in a number of dramatic ways. Men that have had this done to them are I don't know if you've noticed there's a tremendous amount of denial surrounding this issue. It's nonsensical, because if you take something that people enjoy, okay, and people enjoy this, and you take something and you hack away at it and you massively damage it, something that you enjoy, that's obviously something that's wrong. So for a man to say, okay, like every man, right, we're designed to like sex. That's why it feels good. It feels good for a reason. That's all I'm saying. It feels good for a reason. And so it's supposed to feel good, right? It's designed to feel good. So our bodies, why would you be a man and then know that something that all men like this? Why would you go to another man and tell him that it's okay that somebody hacked away at the most sensitive part that every man realizes every other man enjoys, right? Like, if you went through puberty, as a man, you understand every other man, right? You understand their desires. That's part of, it's kind of like getting hungry. Okay. It's part of our natural human desires. It's perpetuation of life. How would you then come to another man and say, you know what, I'm cool with this, and then be surprised that another man is mad that this happened to him? Like, where does that total disconnect? That's a very, how can you hold those two thoughts in your head, that men like sex and that removing or damaging the organ of sex is okay? How can you, as a man, have those two same thoughts in the same brain? It doesn't make sense, right? That's a sign of damage, of severe mental damage. It's not like these men can't think this through and realize, hey, I like this, let's not subtract something from it. That's not a hard thing to realize. That's not a very strong leap of logic, or, it doesn't take some massive brain power to figure that out. So it's ludicrous. It's nonsensical. It just makes no sense for a man to claim that he's fine with this. Don't accept that as that's not acceptable for as logical thinking. That's just, it's so outside of normal, reasonable thinking that it's don't even accept it. It's just non-acceptable. I just have to deal with this, because it just blows my mind how I have to tell people that this is wrong. It blows my mind that I even have to have a discussion with people to tell them this is harmful, that this hurts children, that this is damaging to our children and our society and our lives. It's complete. It just makes no sense, man. It makes no sense. But anyways, I think just hearing these stories, listen to people, what people say about it, I think is valuable. So please do me a favor and let other people know about these videos. Share them, like, subscribe. Thank you for taking the time out to listen to me, and I appreciate you hearing my rambling. I just think that people need to hear this stuff, and someone needs to say it. I may not be the best at saying it, but I'm going to try my hardest to do what I can to protect children. That's more important to me than my own life, to protect children from this. Thank you.
circumcision denies a male's right to genital integrity and to a fully functioning penis.
Near the stone that was placed to mark the proper location. Then we clamp it.